New York City was alive with energy. Neon billboards flashed above Times Square, taxis honked impatiently, and crowds hurried through the cold winter air. Steam rose from street vents, adding to the city's unmistakable atmosphere, but not everyone was in a rush. On the steps of an upscale hotel, a man sat alone. His clothes were worn, his boots scuffed, and his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the sleeves of his tattered military jacket. His name was James Carter, a former U.S. Marine who had served in Afghanistan and Iraq. He wasn't asking for pity, only a second chance. Next to him, a cardboard sign rested against his backpack. Veteran in need, please help. Most people barely noticed. Those who did glanced away, uncomfortable with the reality before them. Just a few feet away, a black SUV pulled up. The back door swung open, and Donald Trump stepped out. Trump had just wrapped up an important business meeting. He adjusted his coat and was about to head into the hotel when his eyes caught something unusual. A man in a military jacket, sitting alone. For a brief moment, Trump's usually sharp, businesslike expression softened. Trump wasn't a stranger to meeting veterans. He had spoken to hundreds at events, thanked them for their service, and even donated to causes supporting them. But this was different. Here was a man who had fought for his country, now left out in the cold, invisible to the very people he had sworn to protect. Trump hesitated for just a second, then turned away from the entrance and walked toward James. People around murmured in surprise. Security personnel instinctively moved closer, but Trump waved them off. James, who had been staring at the ground, noticed a figure approaching. He looked up and his eyes widened. Trump crouched slightly, meeting James's gaze. "What's your name, soldier?" he asked, his voice firm yet unexpectedly kind. James blinked, unsure if this was real. "James Carter, sir," he answered slowly. His voice was rough, not just from the cold, but from years of hardship. Trump nodded, glancing at James's torn boots and calloused hands. "You served?" James cleared his throat. "Yes, sir. 12 years. I was in Afghanistan, then Iraq. Got injured. Things haven't been easy since." Trump studied him for a moment. Then, without a word, he pulled out his phone. "Stay right here," he said. "We're gonna fix this." James frowned, unsure what was happening. Trump took a few steps away and dialed a number. "Margaret, find me the nearest 5-star hotel. Book a suite under the name James Carter. Also, call a doctor. I need someone to give him a full checkup. And get in touch with a veteran support group. A real one, not just some charity that makes promises." There was a brief pause on the other end. Then Margaret responded, "Right away, Mr. Trump." Trump turned back to James, who was watching him with a mix of confusion and cautious hope. "Help is coming," Trump assured him. "But first, let's get you something warm to eat." Trump waved down a street vendor and ordered 2 hot coffees and a fresh sandwich. Instead of handing James the food and walking away, Trump sat down next to him. James hesitated for a moment before taking a sip of the coffee. The warmth spread through his fingers, a feeling he hadn't had in months. Trump watched him. "How did it come to this?" he finally asked. James sighed. "It happens fast," he admitted. "One day, you're in uniform, part of something bigger. The next day, you're out, trying to find a job with skills that don't fit in an office. Things spiral. Rent doesn't wait. Neither do bills." Trump nodded, listening intently. This wasn't just one man's story. This was the story of thousands. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up. The hotel was ready. James hesitated. "Why are you doing this, Mr. Trump?" "You don't even know me." Trump met his gaze. "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." James stepped into the SUV. For the first time in years, he felt hope. At the hotel, staff greeted James like a VIP. He was given fresh clothes, a hot shower, and a full medical checkup. Meanwhile, Trump's team had reached Veterans United Support Services, a top nonprofit that helped veterans find housing and job opportunities. Lisa, a case manager, met with James. "We're going to help you get back on your feet," she assured him. "You're not alone anymore." James couldn't stop the tears from forming. He wasn't forgotten. Months later, James was working, had his own apartment, and was even mentoring other veterans. At a charity event, James stood on stage. Trump sat in the front row, watching proudly. "One person stopped to listen," James said. "And that changed everything." The audience erupted in applause. After the event, James approached Trump. "I'll never forget what you did for me." Trump shook his hand. "Then do one thing, pay it forward." James nodded. "I will." As Trump walked into the New York night, a quiet sense of satisfaction settled over him. One life had been transformed, and for James Carter, the future finally looked bright. If you enjoyed this inspiring story, like, share, and subscribe for more. Remember, one small act of kindness can change a life forever.